a professor of entrepreneurship at Chapman University, and he's also the chairman of the Tech Coast Angels, and it's kind of amazing being able to do both of those. So he's a teacher and a wise man regarding entrepreneurship, and then he's also the leader of the Angel Investing Group, which is a group of high net worth people that review deals, review entrepreneurs, and make a decision about, and invest money in them. And so it's quite an exciting dynamic. And I didn't know this before 5 or 6 years ago when I did start to do consulting and coaching in this field, that the Tech Coast Angels that we have in basically Orange County, LA, and San Diego and Southern California is the largest angel investing group in the country. So we really here have an extraordinary community of startup. This is Startupville for the country and the world. And Richard is one of the main people in it. So without further ado, let's welcome Richard Sudeck.
So first of all, good morning. Good morning. Okay, that was pretty weak. Let's try that again. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, much better. So Judy, thank you for those kind words. I want to lower your expectation based on what she said, because it's early in the morning. So I'm delighted to be here this morning and talk a little bit about what I'm doing, or we're trying to do at least, and I'll talk a little bit about my background and then be very interested in entertaining any questions. So a little bit of background about myself. Basically, I'm a geek. I went to undergraduate here as a EE, electrical engineering and computer science major. And at age 24, I started a computer consulting and integrator firm with $250. And I was frustrated I started so late at 24. I was the kid who had the lemonade stands, the car washes, etc. So I finally started at 24 and basically bootstrapped a company, organically grew it for 17 years, and sold it to SAIC, which at the time was a very large engineering firm, about $6 billion in revenue. They're now, I think, $12 billion or something even larger. And so, when I started that company, I had never taken a business class. I wrote my first business plan 4 years in when I needed bank financing. So I tell my students I'm qualified to teach entrepreneurship because I've made every mistake in small business. Not most, every mistake. I've hired too quickly, fired too slowly. I've used credit cards to make payroll more than once. I ask my students what chapter in finance do they talk about credit cards for payroll. I'm from sort of the hard knocks school of entrepreneurship. When I sold my company in 1999, my personal mission shifted to give back to entrepreneurs. And I had been involved with, for instance, UCI Business School as a mentor and judge on business plan competitions and that type of thing. But I wanted to do more. So I joined Tech Coast Angels in 2000. And angel investing is basically venture capital before formal venture capital money. Yes? Could you step to that side of the screen? All we're getting is a silhouette. Oh, well, I'm going to be moving around a lot, so you're going to have that camera moving. As long as it okay. Stand in front of the screen, we'll get you. Okay. So where was I? When I was 5 years old, So I joined Tech Coast Angels. Tech Coast Angels actually is the largest angel firm in the world. We've invested about $120 million in 170 companies and have attracted about $1.4 billion of add-on financing. We've had 3 initial public offerings, or IPOs, and we have a 4th one on the way. And I'm not chairman anymore. I'm chairman emeritus. I was chairman a couple years ago. But really love the energy of that organization. And it kept me close to entrepreneurship without having to lay awake at night and worry about payroll, et cetera. So I enjoyed that. I've screened over 900 companies during that tenure since 2000. So I have a lot of experience in looking at business models, looking at entrepreneurs. My research actually focuses on how investors make decisions. And I can predict how investors will look at companies based on things like cognitive style, personality, and different background information and personality attributes of them. We used to think it was just specifically what the entrepreneur had to offer, but it has a lot to do with who's viewing the particular entrepreneur. And I was also involved in an Angel Capital Association, which represents angels across the country. I decided to go back to school, get an MBA back in 2001. I'm a continuous learner, and I just kept going in and getting a PhD. Found that that was probably my best way to teach or get better teaching opportunities. I love being in the classroom. I have a lot of passion for working with students or young entrepreneurs and try to help them avoid or many of the mistakes that I've made. And you know, often there's this discussion: are entrepreneurs born, or can you make them? Can you teach them?
They all have monitors.
They do, but I think there's three groups of people. I think there are people that should stay in the corporate world that don't understand how to tolerate risk. I think there are people who are born entrepreneurs, but there's a big group in the middle that if you give them the right tools, you can enable them to be entrepreneurs. And so that question often comes up. But I want to talk today about really entrepreneurship in Orange County and how you build a great entrepreneurial ecosystem. I spend time in the Bay Area because of my research and because of Tech Coast Angels, and if you're familiar, that's the center of venture capital in the world. And it has a very tight and cohesive entrepreneurial ecosystem. But why don't we have one here? When you look at an entrepreneurial ecosystem, you really need to make connections between these different types of resources and sort of groups. The most important thing to have a great ecosystem is to have successful entrepreneurs. So sometimes an alumni will put a lot of money in a university, say, let's just pick on Iowa today, and they try to build an entrepreneurship center, and they struggle because they don't have the right raw material. And the raw material is a lot of successful entrepreneurs who can mentor, can be on boards, can coach, etc. And we have that here in Orange County. We have a lot of successful entrepreneurs. You need to have ideas, you need to have capital, you need to have resources such as firms and marketing firms that understand how to work with startups, and you need to have the talent to help execute that. So Orange County really has the necessary raw materials, again, successful entrepreneurs being one of the key ones. However, we do not have a connected ecosystem. So I have a very big vision, and that is to connect that ecosystem and help make it thrive. And it's going to take a lot of years to do that. You don't do that overnight. So Chapman will become the place where entrepreneurs, inventors, and investors meet and collaborate. We need to create that place within the community where people can go for events, for resources, for mentoring, etc. So how do you do that? Well, the formula is pretty simple. I'm going to spend the next hour and a half going through this formula because we're at a university. Isn't that what we do here? Right? No. So how do we do that? Well, basically, we create events and education, specifically informal education, and resources to help entrepreneurs. And so, you know, one of the interesting things is last summer I became director of the Entrepreneurship Center at Chapman, and I thought it was odd that most of the entrepreneurship centers create their programs in silos. So I do a lot of things here at UCI, I speak at UCI, and they have a great entrepreneurship center, but they tend to be focused within. So I went to UCI and UCLA and Fullerton and Caltech and UCLA, or excuse me, USC, Loyola, Pepperdine, Claremont McKenna, and said, why don't we cross-connect our centers? Why don't we allow students from each university to go to each other's events? And they said, well, that'd be a great idea. Okay, so we're starting to do that, and that's going to take time. We're doing things like Geek Ups, where we're going to invite all the engineering and business students from Cal State Fullerton, UCI, and have them over at Chapman, and start trying to create the connections between the students. There's no reason that a student has a passion for a particular type of technology or just startup in general at Chapman can't be working with someone at USC, UCI, etc. Now, the other thing we did to really try to put Orange County on the map is I created a business plan competition called California Dreamin'. And this is $100,000 of cash for the top schools in the West. Now, the key here is that it's not just cash, but I have top VCs and angels from the Bay Area and actually from New York coming to this competition, reviewing all the students. And the idea is that you might not win the cash, but you could get a lead on financing, right? On equity financing up to, say, $1 million or even more. And so we have a number of schools, the schools I mentioned, such as USC and Caltech, UCLA, local schools. But we also have Berkeley, Arizona, BYU, Utah, Oklahoma, Baylor, Houston, Hawaii, etc. My intention was to have this to be 8 to 12 schools the first year, but I actually filled it up. And the next year we'll move it out to more schools. So it'll be 30 or 40 schools probably. But this will really help put Orange County on the map by bringing the top schools in for this competition. Now, it's important to connect the mentors to the entrepreneurs. So I have approximately 100 entrepreneurs in residence at Chapman. And these are high variance of talent and expertise, all successful. I probably have 10 or so that did IPOs. So I have people from the PayPal founding team, from Dropbox, Eventbrite, inventor of the Universal Remote, William Wang from Vizio, Jeff Curl from Skull Candy, on and on. So some pretty named or recognizable entrepreneurs. But plenty of entrepreneurs who had restaurants and smaller firms who were successful, but you wouldn't necessarily know the name. Because I really want to try to address two parts of the ecosystem. The one part is fast growth, high tech. That's sort of where I'm from. And the other is growth-oriented small companies. So companies are going to grow to be $5 or $10 million. They're not necessarily going to be $50 or $100 million, but they're going to grow fast and they're going to grow well. And the idea is to bring in entrepreneurs who can mentor students and will work with the community. They can be board members, they can be advisors. But the other layers I'm bringing in are executives in residence. So especially if you're a young entrepreneur, you're 22, and when you want to get your product in Best Buy, that's pretty intimidating. So we're bringing in executives who have no entrepreneur experience, but they've been at Best Buy for 15 years. So they'll introduce you to the buyer, they'll tell you how Best Buy works, and they'll help you get through the system. Now the third component are inventors in residence. We have a group of 300 inventors from the Inventors Forum, which has actually been around in Orange County since 1991. And they now meet on campus. And they're involved here also to provide that portion of the mentoring. Of course, we have student resources. I've gone out to attorneys and CPAs and marketing firms to provide free services for our students to get them started. We have entrepreneurship clubs, and they're cross-disciplinary. And we have SIFE, which is basically social entrepreneurship or nonprofit entrepreneurship. We also have our own internal business plan competition. I'm sort of proud of this team. The last winner are sophomores. They're in 100 pet stores. They created a pet product. Forbes picked them up as one of the top 9 entrepreneurs in the country, up against USC and Stanford and Northwestern. They've been in Entrepreneur magazine. They were just in Inc. magazine, and they're doing really well. And out of those 9 entrepreneurs, they were picked most likely to succeed. So we've gotten a lot of recognition for this team, and we're now helping them raise money, build a board, etc., as they grow. So one of the keys to connecting the ecosystem is to create resources and events. And so, although I'm doing things internally, one of the more important things I need to do is all the outward-facing opportunities and events. So we have a number of events here that are open to the public. So we have a speaker series. This is free, open to the public. We have 150 to 200 people show up. We have at least a couple a semester, and they're very eclectic by design. So we have social entrepreneurs. We had Dennis Tito, who manages billions of dollars and was the first space tourist. He paid the Russians about $20 million to go up in space. Brought us home movies. It's pretty cool. We have Wing Lam from Wahoo Fish Tacos, Vinnie Smith from Quest Software. We had Lee Steinberg this semester. And some people were concerned because he declared Chapter 7. I said, no, this is great. I said, when Tom Cruise plays you in a movie, that's the top of your career. And when you file Chapter 7, that's near the bottom. And he talked about alcohol, how it ruined his life, basically. So it was a great message for the students. Now, again, this is open to the public, so we have all kind of people in attendance, but certainly plenty of students. We have the co-founder of Paul Frank, the clothing line. Jeff Curl spoke. And then Amy Purdy, which was probably the most inspirational speaker we've had. She's a young woman who got into some kind of, I think it was bacterial infection, but lost her legs, both her legs under her knees. And she became a gold medal winner in snowboarding. And she's an entrepreneur. And again, I was about in tears as she talked about the story of how she had to fight against, at 21, having both her legs amputated. So again, and we have social entrepreneurs, all kinds of speakers. We'd love to have you, some of you come. If you go to our website, which is chapman.edu/launch, you can sign up for our mail list. We only send out about one mail a month, so you won't be inundated. And again, we have, most of our events are free, not all, but they're usually very fun. So those are the speakers that we had this semester. I guess the other thing to mention that we've partnered with TIE, the Indus Entrepreneur Group, which is 14,000 entrepreneurs worldwide. And we had John Majors, the chairman of Broadcom, out in February. And last week we had Henrik Fisker from Fisker Automotive, which he's based out of, I think it's Anaheim, but here in Orange County, which is a very interesting speaker. He's raised over $1 billion. And starting a new car company is very difficult. We also have an Entrepreneur of the Year. William Wang was our Entrepreneur of the Year. Richard Wolcott from Volcom was the one before we just started this. This is our $100 a plate dinner. This is our fundraiser. But this is a very nice event. We sold this out at 225 people last year, so we're moved to a larger area. But this is something to really recognize Orange County entrepreneurs. And then we have something called Startup Weekend. And when I first heard about this, I said, this is BS. Okay? This guy gets over 100 people in a room for the weekend, and he launches multiple companies on Sunday night. You can't do that, right? I'm an old entrepreneur. You don't launch a company. It took me 17 years. Damn it, you don't launch it over the weekend. He's launched 1,400 companies this way. He's done it in 100 cities. So we had the first one in Orange County in the fall. It was November. Sold out, 135 people. Now, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to come to this. You need to have an idea or just want to be part of a startup team. So 130 showed up, plus mentors and others. 64 entrepreneurs pitched on Friday night. 21 teams formed late Friday night. They worked all through the weekend. And 17 teams pitched on Sunday night. And oh, that's right. Yeah. What was the name of your team? Oh, so that was this weekend. Yeah. So I'm talking about the one in fall, and we just had another one this past weekend, and there's our winner. We had 16 teams pitch on Sunday night this past. So it's an awesome event. What we do is we bring in coders and designers to help the entrepreneurs, and they bring up websites over the weekend. Some actually have customers by Sunday night. It's amazing. So that's an event. We'll have 3 of those at Chapman this year. This is our first one in the summer, one in the fall, and it's a very interesting event. It's not designed for students. It's designed for entrepreneurs in the community, and it costs $100, and that's really just to cover the food. So the idea is this is not to make money. We actually subsidize it at Chapman to have this event at Chapman. And then I'm very excited that we are going to have a TEDx at Chapman on June 21st. And of course, entrepreneurship is one of the themes. And we're working on that furiously to bring in the speakers. But TEDx, how many people are familiar with TED? Okay, awesome, right? So TEDx is simply the local version. It will be at 2 p.m., of course, on the campus on the 21st. And we're working to get some very interesting speakers, which are not yet locked in, but should be some very interesting mavericks of entrepreneurship. And if you've never been to a TEDx, I highly, highly recommend it. And again, that should be free or very low cost. Now, one of the things I think is very important, especially for young entrepreneurs, but really entrepreneurs of any age, is informal education. I work in a formal education institution, right? But if you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to sit through classes and get a degree. Okay, you might if you're younger. What you need is informal education. So that's what I'm trying to change here in the ecosystem. So we've launched a series of seminars and workshops called Napkin to Revenue and Beyond. Okay, right? The idea of on the back of a napkin, you come up with an idea. And these are seminars that are going to cost maybe $100 to maybe $200, some even less. And they're high-intent seminars for 2, 3, maybe 4 hours. How to build a startup board. If you're a young entrepreneur, even if you go get a degree in entrepreneurship, do you really know how to build a startup board? Startup board's very different than a corporate board. So, so the guy who teaches that is Dave Burkus, who is former chairman of Tech Coast Angels. He's been on 40 boards. He has 80 angel investments. He's flown around the country to talk about this. So for about $100, you can sit with him for 3 hours in a small, not a big classroom, but a small audience, and really be able to pick his brain and get his expertise. So we're going to have seminars and workshops, how to build a startup board, how to attract equity investing, how to negotiate a term sheet, how to build a sales team. You know, should I go LLC or incorporate, et cetera. Those kinds of topics that as an entrepreneur you want to go to for 2, 3 hours, but you're not going to sit in a class for 15 weeks. But probably my most aggressive initiative, and the one that's really pushing me to 7 days a week right now, I told my wife I think maybe I should go open up a company because I'm working harder than when I had my own company. To build all this takes quite a bit of time because this has all been launched since last summer. So we've created what we call the Entrepreneur Village, or E-Village, which is both a concept and a physical location. So basically on campus, right across the street, technically, we bought houses. There's a house and some buildings behind it, and we're creating an E-Village. And main anchor tenant in that is called K5 Launch, which is an accelerator. How many people have heard the term accelerator incubator? Okay, so accelerators are a little different. They're much more intense than an incubator. Accelerators are where you take entrepreneurs in, you put money in, and they go through a rigorous process. So this accelerator is run by 4 angels, so it's professionally run. Most academic institutions who launch accelerators fail because academics don't really know how to start up companies, right? And to step back for a moment, so my friends, either from my friends from the startup days or my new colleagues in academia, I either came from the dark side or went to the dark side, right? So it's important to understand if you're an academic institution what you want the academics to do and what you want practitioners to do. And with entrepreneurship, we want almost everything done by practitioners. And so rather than try to create our own, we're partnering with someone who's putting their own money in, who runs these entrepreneurs through a 12-week rigorous process, mentors them, and gets them ready to pitch. Does what's called market validation and customer validation. Okay? And you know, we have a shower in that facility because this is pretty intense, right? 150 entrepreneurial teams applied. 5 were chosen. We're in the middle of the first class of that, and they have the house there in the front. And then in the back, we have a building with conference rooms for the community as we bring in different organizations and people. And we have a student incubator, and a student incubator is where we give them space and resources and bring all those entrepreneurs in residence and do lunch and learns every week and really encourage entrepreneurship at the student level. We will expand that in the fall. We hope to incubate a community-based company. Okay? So a company that maybe has had some initial angel funding. We'll provide our resources for them. But the others involved in this E-Village, besides K5 Launch, which is the accelerator, is TriTech, which is an SBDC. Tech Coast Angels, of course, which I'm heavily involved with. And I mentioned the Indus Entrepreneur Group. This is a great group to be involved with because they have a lot of connections. We'll bring in a lot of great entrepreneurs. We also have EO, which is 8,000 entrepreneurs, which has a chapter here in Orange County. We're doing events with them. And then the Inventors Forum, and this is sort of one of my favorites, again, because I'm a geek. It's 300 inventors. I didn't know they even existed. They've been around since '91. They meet twice a month. The first meeting is a public meeting. They bring speakers to talk about patents, licensing, QVC, how do you get on QVC, you know, with your invention. And the second meeting is members only. You sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, get in front of the group and say, here's my invention. Should I license it? Should I patent it? What should I do? Well, that's an awesome opportunity, especially if you're a geek. But they now meet on campus, and so our students can attend those meetings free and sit with inventors every month and see how inventors think. Because one of the myths is that you come up with a great idea and it's a product, No, you come up with a great idea, it morphs, it changes, and eventually it typically becomes a product, right? So that process of innovation and invention is something that it's hard to get to that, right? How do you get a bunch of inventors in a room together? In the members only meeting, in the second meeting, which is smaller, is 50 inventors. That's a lot of expertise on how to get things from idea to product. And then we'll have other groups involved. Now, one of the goals is to actually open up these services to the community as far as having office hours with attorneys, with CPAs, with these entrepreneurs, so we can help with the community and entrepreneurs. So that's really sort of the whole story, and we're really trying to make Chapman the center of that hub, but work with UCI, Cal State Fullerton, Pepperdine, et cetera, other schools in the area to really encourage entrepreneurship throughout. Because my personal mission, as I mentioned in the beginning, was to give back. And what I want to do is affect change in the ecosystem. Because if you think about venture capital, if you want to be a high-tech startup, where do you go? Go to Silicon Valley. Is it because the weather's better up there? No. Is it because the beaches are better? No. It's because that's where venture capital is. And we do have some high-tech entrepreneurs that have migrated down south now, down to Orange County, that are pretty connected. And we want to move some of that here. That will always be the center of venture capital. And the great thing is that if we build out high-tech entrepreneurship in a bigger way here, you're only a Southwest flight to the center of the universe to visit every VC you need to. So that's my presentation. You'll notice it says questions, not questions and answers, so you're welcome to ask questions. I'm not sure I'll actually answer any of them, but so any questions? Yes.
I have a question about the business plan competition. It seems that in the tech startup, the new model is the customer validation. My question is about the business plan competition, and it seems like the new model in tech startup is the customer validation. Instead of like having a business plan and the numbers and projections, you actually create the concept, do the customer validation, and iterate over that. How does that new model, like customer and market validation, fit into the business plan competition or in the tech?
Sure.
world?
So that's the new trend, right? It used to be academics, they understood what a business plan was because it was a document with certain components, so that's what they would teach. Now I actually had played around with different names for a competition, but I decided to go with business plan competition because that's what a lot of the schools know. But when it comes down to launching a company, you have to pitch it. You have to pitch it to investors, you have to pitch it to customers or potential customers, you have to pitch it to partners, you have to pitch it to future employees. And really the essence of this competition is it's a VC angel-like run. In other words, get up and do 15 minutes of PowerPoint, 15 minutes of Q&A, and we're going to make a judgment based on how you pitched, not on your plan. So I could change the name, but for some of the academics, sometimes things move a little slower. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but when you're on campus, your watch actually runs slower. So a lot of them know it as the business plan competition, and so that's what we're calling it. But what it really is pitching. And one of the frustrations I have in academia is that there's been so much focus on the actual plan.
Yeah.
Now I tell my students the most important part of the plan is, I ask them, what's the most important part of the plan? Executive summary, financials. No, it's the process of getting your team together and agreeing on what your strategy is and aligning the team. The actual document is not necessarily very useful, right? It's the process that's important. And a lot of people forget in academia is that if you go to Tech Coast Angels, you pitch, then we decide if you move on to due diligence, and then we look at your business plan. Your business plan, we sort of expect it to be there, but what's important is you were able in 15 minutes to convince us that this was something exciting to invest in. So we actually did play around with that, and some of the schools now in their competitions don't require a business plan. And some were concerned, and I said, whatever your school requires will be fine for us. And what's different is, let me just digress for a moment. See, now I'm in academia. I used to be able to answer that question in like a minute or less, easy, but now I can't. I actually have a bigger vision for that. And so they have these big mother of all competitions like Rice University. And I talked to other entrepreneurship directors, and they're like, we don't want to send our kids to Rice anymore. It's just too big. It's 39 tracks. And they have this humongous thing. And they make it complicated because it's equity investment rather than just cash. So I've picked the top schools, and I said, you pick the team. It's made it real simple for me. Right? I'm not going to go through all these business plans to decide which team's going to come. No, you pick the team, which is the winner typically of their competition, and come to our competition. But the vision for that is, rather than try to make the biggest one in the nation, I'm going to partner with one of the top schools on the East Coast, and they're going to do the same thing. It won't be California dreaming. It might be more like Boston dreaming. I'm not sure. And then we're going to have a Super Bowl. So let's take the West and let's take the East Coast, take the top 3 from those competitions, and then rotate it each year, 1 year on the West Coast, 1 year on the East Coast, and have the Super Bowl. So the idea is to really bring this out nationally eventually, but first I just want to start here in the West. Okay.
This is a very selfish question. I wish that I had done this 110 years ago when I was in college. But right now, I'm in the middle of a seeming startup. It's 3 years old, and it needs the skills that I overlooked. And I'm wondering if there's a path for me to get involved in it, either with some of the students to help me out, or for me to take classes, or that kind of thing. For those of us that are more mature, perhaps in the business by accident, the E-Myth kind of deal.
And by more mature, you mean older like us? Yeah. So I'm always reminded in the classroom, in the classroom, I'm a nearly dead. Okay. So the answer is yes, yes, and soon. So the events we have are free. The speaker series is free. We have a mixer there. The idea is to bring in, we invite the Inventors Forum, the investors. So that's one opportunity. The seminars are going to be relatively inexpensive, what I call inexpensive, $100 to go to, and you're going to get intense education through those. The actual resources in the e-village are not open. It's not open to the public yet because we're just firing that up. We just opened it in February, and in the fall we hope to start to do that. So I don't have a good answer for that yet, but I do want to open that up to the community. But actually, we've had such a high response already. We're a little bit flooded. So we already meet with entrepreneurs. So if you said, hey, I want to talk to someone, we get you a meeting. But I don't have those services built out right now. So I'd say come to our free events, come to the seminars, and then you'll see other things develop to help connect you.
Okay, I have the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a very quick little question for those of us who don't know, if you don't mind. What is TED?
Okay. I'm going to forget. What's T? Oh, technology, entertainment, and digital. Basically, it's a conference that was started years ago. It's very cool. I don't know the exact numbers. You have to pay $7,000. You have to write a big essay to get in. Bill Gates and a lot of high-end people attend this. It was in Long Beach this past a month ago. But they now have this local version. And these are very inspirational speakers. And they talk about from medical technology to nuclear physics to personal growth to ecology, just all over. So it's a very inspirational event. You can go online, just Google TED, and they have most of their talks online. You can spend hours just listening to talks there. And there's a number of talks I recommend to people. I do CEO coaching for small companies, and so there's some talks I recommend to CEOs I coach, and of course to my students. So I highly recommend you check it out, and it'll be free. So it's worth going to.
Okay, one more here. To be an entrepreneur, sometimes you require, or some people have certain level or degree of they're risk takers, and how do you regulate that? And also, one thing is to make the money once you are out there in the marketplace promoting your service or your product. And then how do you help them understand the one thing is to make the money and the other one is to keep the money, right? Managing Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go. What was it? Your first question again was? The,
The first one is about the risk-taker aspect
Okay,
of
yeah,
being an
right.
entrepreneur.
So that's a great question, right? Because there's a myth that people think that entrepreneurs are great risk takers. And in reality, and the research bears this out, they're not. They're calculated risk takers. Now, the media will emphasize like Richard Branson, super wealthy, super successful entrepreneurs, flies balloons around the world, right? Big risk taker, okay? But most entrepreneurs are calculated risk takers. What they have is a high tolerance for ambiguity rather than for risk. So for me, I don't know where payroll's coming next week. Okay, very ambiguous on how that's going to work out. And so, and again, research has shown that. So it's not that they're not risk takers, they are, but most successful entrepreneurs are calculated risk takers. They think out, you know, when you're younger, maybe not as much, when you're 20, okay, about a lot of things in life, not thinking it out, right? But it's more about calculating risk-taking. And by the way, just to digress for a moment, one of my areas of research is passion, entrepreneurial passion. It is a predictor of who gets invested in. We actually analyzed 130 screening videos and looked for body language on passion and found that passion was prevalent throughout how they wrote their business application, which is only 5 pages, their body language and words they used, etc. So pretty much any successful entrepreneur that I have any respect for has passion to change the world in that particular area. Now, it might not be world-changing, but they're really not in it for the money. And I would say a lot of entrepreneurs are not good with money. They're good at making money, but not investing and saving money. And so that's where you need a professional to do that. Right? So holding on to it, I mean, building a good board who have, at least have some gray hairs on your board can probably help you with that.
You mentioned the nonprofit sector, and you mentioned wanting to give back and passion.
Right.
So I have all those things, but what's the biggest difference with a nonprofit and the most collaborative of what you're saying? And what's most alike what you're doing and what's most different if it's a nonprofit?
So I've spent some time, I was on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters for 10 years. I've been involved in other nonprofits. And there was a gentleman about 10 years ago that we worked together on trying to bring best practices of investment and angel and venture capital into nonprofits to create revenue streams within nonprofits. So the idea was, and this is now called social entrepreneurship, but the idea is to go into existing nonprofits and create a revenue stream so they can expand their mission and become less dependent on donors. Right? And what a struggle that was. The word profit in a nonprofit is evil. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some revenue, we're going to help you make more money so you can expand your services. Oh, we don't want to make money. Don't you want to expand your mission? Oh, absolutely. Don't you want to do more for whatever that is that you do? Absolutely. But we do not want to make money. So we actually spent a lot of time culturally changing from an organizational behavior point of view the mindset of profit bad. So really, social entrepreneurs are creating change, and for-profit entrepreneurs are typically creating change. There's an opportunity that needs to be addressed, and they're addressing it. So there's a lot of overlap, and there's often the same amount of passion, right, to build something, to help. And so in academia, of course, we have to put names around things, and so there's what's called the double bottom line and triple bottom line. So double bottom line is where you're doing social good and making money. And triple is those two plus doing something green. So, we have a social entrepreneurship class at Chapman that we take students through that build nonprofits per se, but do it based on building a revenue stream. So Tom's Shoes would be a good example. For every pair of shoes that they sell, they give a pair of shoes. That's a social entrepreneurship. That's clearly into revenue. So I think culturally in nonprofits we have to help change the mindset a little bit.
here. About your big picture, Richard, which is to create more connection or create, in your assessment, I can't remember your exact language, but you said we have this and this, but we don't have this connectedness, or we're disconnected.
Right.
So I'm just curious as to how you see that, and what's the change you're wanting to see? What's missing, and what are you putting in? Even though you've said a bunch of that here. But.
Yeah. So really, it's just connecting successful entrepreneurs to, early entrepreneurs, and not age-based, right? But their first startup. And, that's really the key. And when I talk to successful entrepreneurs about this vision, they're all over it. And a number of them say, "I wish I had this when I was in college or I was in my 20s," right? So, within the university system, they're amazed. This is a great idea. This is just blocking and tackling, really. This is just getting the people who have had some success sit down with the people who are just starting out, just as you would coach someone, whether they're in a corporate job or otherwise. But then getting the resources connected. So, for instance, the Inventors Forum, 300 inventors, okay? They don't look at you when they talk to you. They're real inventors. They're not entrepreneurs. We need to connect them to the entrepreneurs that want to take their idea and get it to the market. Okay, so we have these mixers, and we just create opportunities for them to mix and talk.
I have the mic. So, I'm looking at healthcare because I'm a physician. So I'm looking at, there really doesn't seem to be any entrepreneurial, as far as I know, maybe I just haven't researched it, but other than technology, technological advances and companies that start up that way, what about an innovative approach to healthcare, which I believe I have, and trying to be a business person in addition to being a clinician is really hard. Do you know of anyone that has successfully done that? And is it just different personality types, and that there's the Medicare or the government will take care of it mindset that interferes? I don't know where the question is, but...
Yeah, so it's a good question. I'm not healthcare specific. So for instance, Orange County is the U.S. capital of medical device companies. And San Diego has a lot of life science, a lot of biotech type of companies. But healthcare specific, no. Now we have some entrepreneurs involved with the center that do have that experience. And that is an interesting mix, right? The way doctors are trained, right, to go through this process and to be innovative and take risk, that's not necessarily overlaps well. But if you want to give me your card, we can try to connect you to, to someone that's maybe done something in that area. I think we're out of time. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Richard. I'm Heather.
Hi.
I want to find out more about the profile of the person that actually gets the money. You talked about the passion, but what other characteristics are there?
So, so there are a couple things. First of all, the business idea has to have a certain threshold, right? So it has to be a pretty good idea. But what we're really, what it comes down to is we're really looking for someone who's more focused on winning than being right. Now, that, as you get older, let's say, again, old in my environment's over 22, that's a little more obvious. But when you're a young entrepreneur, you're stubborn, you're intense, you're aggressive, right? And so we want someone very passionate, but still is listening. And because almost every deal we've invested in, the business model they walked in with is not the business model 3 years later. And so they have to be able to adapt. So there's a couple other things in the angel environment. One is it has to be a good idea, has to be disruptive enough, has some kind of competitive barrier, right? So it can't be copied easy. And then we need to have a path to exit. Because as an angel investor, we only get our return when you sell the company. It doesn't matter how profitable you are. So we need to be sure they're thinking about who they'd sell to, how they'd have to position to sell, et cetera. So I would say, good idea, exit plan, plenty of passion, and then perception of trustworthiness is another key indicator. And we evaluate people within the first 20 seconds. And then we anchor there and then actually adjust based on the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, et cetera. And so I would say that's important, how that's managed. And often that correlates with how you answer questions, right? So we never expect you to have all the answers when you come in. And some younger entrepreneurs think they have to have all the answers. We want to have most of the answers, right, so they're prepared. But we want them to be going, I don't know that, but I'll get that answer for you. So there's two things I'd also add on to that. This idea about winning and not being right. And winning is about, I don't care where the ideas come, I don't care where the help comes, I want to be successful. And when we did the passion study, we actually uncovered 4 dimensions of passion. So people, when they think of passion, they think about extroversion, right? How loud I get, etc., how animated. But there's actually 3 other areas, and if you can think about this, often I see this in what I call quiet passion. So there's commitment. That means I've mortgaged my house, I'm putting all my money into this, etc. There's preparedness. It means I know everything I can about this industry. I don't have all the answers, but you ask me anything about this plan and about this industry, and I can answer it. I have, extroversion is one component. Then lastly is openness, because that's connected to passion, right? I want to succeed. I'll do whatever it takes. And if your idea is better than this current one, I'm all over that. So, did I answer that question? Okay. So thank you very much for the opportunity and the time today.